What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of What's on Tech. Today we're going to be talking about graphics cards, more specifically RX 6000 and the RTX 3070. Before the video starts, I want to wish you guys a very happy Halloween. Make sure you get your spook on this year while being safe at the same time. Make sure you follow any COVID-19 guidelines posted by the CDC or your local government. If you're in the United States and you want to learn more about COVID-19 and Halloween, I will leave a link for it, first link in the description below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Let's kick things off this week with the RTX 3070. The RTX 3070 was announced back in early September of this year, along with the RTX 3080 and 3090, which was released on September 27th and 24th for the 3080 and the 3090 respectively. While the 3070 was originally supposed to launch on October 15th, it was pushed back 2 weeks from that to actually 2 days before this video actually goes live. The specs for the RTX 3070 are as follows. It has 5,888 CUDA cores, 184 tensor cores, 46 ray tracing cores, 96 ROPs, 184 TMUs, and 8 GB of GDDR6 memory on a 256-bit memory bus. Base clock of 1.5 GHz and a boost clock of 1.73 GHz. It is 9.5 inches long by 4.4 inches wide and is a dual slot card. It consumes 220 watts of power, and NVIDIA recommends at least a 650 watt power supply before putting this into your system. Be careful here. NVIDIA tested the minimum wattage by using a Core i9-10900K system. Your mileage may vary in terms of power supply wattage if you have things like an HEDT processor, like Extreme Edition Core processors or Ryzen Threadripper. Your power supply wattage recommendation might go up based on that to like 750 or 850 watts, depending on what processor you have, as I said before. But that's a story for another episode, not for graphics cards. Although it is important, so make sure you keep a weary eye of that. It also has 17.4 billion transistors and is based on Samsung's 8nm process node. All for a whopping $500. Man, that was a lot of information. So, what we're going to do is we're going to stop for a second. We're going to take a breather and a moment of tranquility. Okay, that moment has passed. Let's get on to the next story. A few days ago, AMD officially announced their second generation of RDNA called RDNA 2. Or, to the average consumer like you and I, it's going to be the RX 6000 series of graphics cards. For the basic specs overview of all three of the announced cards, which is the 6800, 6800 XT, and 6900 XT, I am going to be telling you the specs from least powerful to most powerful on paper. We're going to have to wait for the independent benchmarks to come in, and I'll discuss that in a future episode of What's on Tech. But for here, for the basic specs review, we're going from least powerful to most powerful. Anyways, let's get to the specs. I'm going to start off with the similarities. All three cards have 16 GB of GDDR6 memory on a 256-bit memory bus. They all have 128 MB of brand new Infinity cache, which is based on the Zen Level 3 cache. And they all have 26.8 billion transistors, and they're all based on TSMC's 7nm process node. But that's enough of the similarities. Let's get to the differences. The RX 6800 has 3,840 stream processors with 60 compute units, 60 Ray Accelerators, 96 ROPs, 240 TMUs, and a floating point performance of around 16.2 teraflops. A base clock of 1372 MHz and a gain clock of 1815 MHz, and a boost clock of 2105 MHz. It consumes 250 watts of power, and the card is supposed to launch on November 18th for $579. The RX 6800 XT kicks it up a notch. The RX 6800 XT has 4,608 stream processors, 72 compute units, 72 Ray Accelerators, 128 ROPs, 288 TMUs, and a floating point performance of 20.7 teraflops. It has a base clock of 1487 MHz, a gain clock of 2015 MHz, a boost clock of 2250 MHz. It consumes 300 watts of power, and the card is supposed to launch on the same day as the 6800, which is November 18th, for $649. And now we have the big kahuna of the group, the 6900 XT. The RX 6900 XT has 5,120 stream processors, 80 compute units, 80 Ray Accelerators, 128 ROPs, 320 TMUs, and a floating point performance of around 23 teraflops. It has a base clock of 1529 MHz, a game clock and boost clock similar to the 6800 XT, which is 2015 MHz and 2250 MHz for the game and base clocks respectively. Also like the 6800 XT, it also consumes 300 watts of power and is set to launch on December 8th for $999. Well, that's all of the stories this week. Tune in next week where I take a more of an in-depth analysis into Zen 3 and how it compares to the upcoming 11th generation of Intel Core processors. Anyways, before we sign off for today, I want to sign off with this. Have a very happy Wait a minute. You guys hear that? Hang on. What is that? Wait a minute, guys. I'll be right back with you. What is that? I'll be right back. I promise. I promise. Holy crap! No. What are you doing? What are you